Hello, good morning. Good morning po sa lahat. Good morning, Joyce.
Hi, good morning, Adele. Good morning to all our listeners today.
First time ko makita yung intro natin na video ha. Ang cute.
It's
Joyce,
so
Adele?
millennial at na-antita.
Oo nga, parang napag-alata yung edad nung gumawa at saka yung edad natin. Okay, so kamusta ka naman ngayong umaga?
I'm okay, but as you may have noticed, hindi ako makapag-on ng camera because medyo mahina ang aking signal, ang bandwidth. Medyo related sa
Okay
ating
lang
topic.
Oo nga. Well, as long as pagkakarinigan tayo at saka makakausap natin ng maayos yung mga guests natin, we should be fine, di ba? So, yun.
Yeah.
Intro na natin. Ngayong pandemic, parang dumami ang online transactions, ano? So, parang yung mga activities na nagagawa natin in person dati, ginagawa na natin online kung makakaya rin naman. Pero even before nag-lockdown, ang cybersecurity ay matagal ng mainit na issue. Marami ng mga nabibiktima ng mga cybercriminals at yung mga activities nila ay iba-ibang level, no? Meron sa individual, sa mga pamilya, sa mga bahay, tapos sa mga korporasyon, tapos meron din namang on a bigger scale sa mga nation states.
Tama yan, Adele, no? Pero siguro, because of the pandemic, because of our situation now, parang mas na-heighten yung ganong klaseng problem because now everyone's online.
Correct, na-heighten nga siya. Kasi talagang dahil work from home ang karamihan, ginagamit talaga natin ang internet at ang teknolohiya para maka-function as if normal. So dahil dyan, maswerte tayong pinaunlakan tayo ng dalawa nating guest mula sa ePLDT. Joyce, gusto mo ikaw ang magpakilala sa kanila?
Oh, yes, Adele. So today we are joined by our cybersecurity titos, counterparts. Sila ay si Mr. Angel Redoble, the first Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer of the PLDT Group, and a good friend, Ashley Acedillo, former Congressman and AVP for PLDT Smart Cybersecurity Operation Group. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, titos. That's a term from PLDT, not ours.
Good morning, Joyce. Good morning, Sir Angel. Happy to be here this morning.
Naka-mute pa yata, sir.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everyone. And ngayon ko lang narinig yung cybersecurity titos. Thank you for inviting us. Okay.
Good morning. Kamusta po kayo?
Well, despite everything...
Go ahead, Ace. Go ahead.
Well, despite everything, okay pa naman. We're happy that, first of all, our company has been doing well despite the pandemic. And since it's doing well, we're also very happy that the company is able to take care of all of its employees. But more than that, no, and I think this is what's most relevant for everyone, is that we as a society are able to function still, despite the many shortcomings that the pandemic has posed to us. And all because we have a system that allows us to function online. So you work from home, study from home, and all of that. So we're happy that both our companies, PLDT and Smart, are able to contribute to that in both large and small ways. Boss?
Well, I agree with what you said. We are okay in spite of the pandemic. And on the cybersecurity perspective, even with the pandemic, we did not stop doing what needs to be done. In fact, as mentioned by Adele and Joyce, that the incidents has increased during the pandemic, and that also means for us that we needed to increase our efforts and our vigilance, not only to protect PLDT and Smart, but also our subscribers.
Mm, mm. Okay, puwede po bang bumalik muna tayo magkaroon muna tayo ng parang maiksing crash course about cybersecurity. Puwede pong paki-describe para sa ating mga manonood kung ano yung mga threat na puwedeng kaharapin sa paggamit ng internet at ng technology?
Would you like to answer that, Adele?
Adele, you need to advise.
Yeah, who will answer?
Okay.
Because there are
Actually, kahit
two
sino
of us.
po.
Okay.
Kayong dalawa na lang po muna, pero mag-decide na lang kayo kung sino yung mauuna. Para kung may makaligtaan yung isa, isusupply ng isa.
Okay,
I'll
Ace,
go.
go ahead.
I'll go to the basics muna, boss, and then Sister Angel will provide the larger context. No? So, Adele, as to your question, we need to look at cybersecurity at the very least at 3 levels. No? And hanap tayo kung saan yung appropriate sa atin doon. No, at the highest level, we look at cybersecurity, at least from the Philippine perspective, at the national. No? Yung paano ba sinisecure yung Philippine cyberspace? Of course, that role is primarily with the government, but also critical information infrastructure like Smart and PLDT also have a role to play there. In fact, a very large role. No? Now, we also go naman to the level of the organization or the company. Everyone who operates a business or who has a mission to perform, more or less, they have a footprint in cyberspace. They have a network to secure and they have data to secure. So, yun, kailangan din tingnan natin ang cybersecurity at that level. And I think for the listeners naman, many of you, ang pinaka-relevant siguro naman dito is yung cybersecurity at the individual level. For those of us who are using the internet, how do we secure ourselves? For those of us who do online transactions, how do we secure ourselves? For our children who do school online, how do we secure their ability to obtain an education without exposing them to the lurking dangers of the internet? So, in the nutshell, that is cybersecurity as seen from 3 different levels. Adele, Sir Angel.
Okay, thank you, Sir Angel.
Yeah. So as regular users, siguro the common question is how do we connect to the internet and use technology, including the different applications, no, whether for mobile or PCs, and maintain our the highest level of security. Now, if you asked me that question more than 10 years ago, I would tell you to change your password, to make sure that you are visiting a legitimate site, and make sure that you only download this and that. No? But unfortunately, that is no longer applicable today. Because even if we change our passwords, the hackers no longer attack our passwords. No? They bypass our authentication systems, and they no longer attack our own PCs to compromise our credentials. They compromise our credentials by way of sending you a phishing message or a phishing email. That
Ano po ba yung
leads,
phishing email, sir? Oo.
yes, the phishing email, for example, is yung receiving an email that a recipient would think that it came from a legitimate source, or it came from a source like it's your bank, no, or your provider, and without checking, you immediately open the link that was sent to you, and you will also be presented a website that looks
Looks
100%
legit.
like your like your provider or like your bank, no? And that provides a certain level of confidence for you to input your username, into your password, and even your
Password.
credit card or bank account information. And that's where phishing comes in. No?
Okay po.
So the attacker tries to fish your information and then use it for fraudulent transactions. Now, that is very common. Now, if you heard about the what happened to a service provider that's providing mobile using mobile application, no? They were compromised, and as the news was saying, 3.3 million users are compromised, and their information is being traded in the dark web. So that's another risk for us users, because not only that our information can be stolen, it can actually be traded in the dark web, and whoever buys our personal information, we don't know what they're gonna do with it, but we can already think of the worst, no? So hindi natin
The
alam.
worst being, ano po kaya yung mga
Hindi
worst case
natin.
scenarios?
So the worst case scenario, for example, is yung pangalan mo pala at saka yung information mo is ginagamit na sa mga terrorist organizations, no?
Oh,
Or
okay.
any cyber criminal activities, no? Yung credit card mo na nanakaw, nagamit na to buy contrabands sa dark web. So these are the scenarios, worst case scenarios. And then you'll just find out siguro pagka bumiyahe ka, no, sa ibang bansa, lalabas yung pangalan mo na naka red flag ka na
Blacklist
pala.
ka, oo.
Yung name mo. Naka red flag na pala yung name mo doon sa country or kung saan ka man pupunta. So it's very dangerous na yung dating kinatatakutan natin na yung identity natin i-assume ng ating kakilala lang, no? Ngayon, ang pwedeng mag-assume ng identity mo ay yung mga nasa ibang bansa that are doing
Strangers.
criminal and terrorist related activities. And that would be a big problem for you.
Oo.
Yeah.
Okay po. So, napakalaki na ng pagbabago. Sabi nyo kanina, itong mga hackers na to, nagiging sophisticated din sila over time. So, paano po kaya nila inaano yung sarili nila? Parang ini-improve or ina-arm yung sarili nila para maka-keep up sila sa technology. Parang ang galing kasi nasusundan nila or baka lauuna pa sila.
Ace, ganito na lang gawin natin, Ace. Pag may tanong, ikaw una.
Okay. Sige, okay yun. Maganda na yan. Well, balik tayo sa question ni Adelle, no? Paano ba, and actually you're correct. The premise is correct, Adelle. Almost always, the cyber criminal or the hacker is one step ahead of the cybersecurity practitioner, or those who defend our networks and our organizations. Why is that?
So, ito mga hackers ba na to, career ba nila to? O parang on the side nila ginagawa? O talagang full-time silang nagde-devote ng oras dito? Ang galing-galing naman.
Yeah, usually, Adelle, they're classified into 4, no? Meron tayong tinatawag ng mga nation states. So these are countries who devote resources to sabotage, to do intelligence work, and to do economic espionage using the internet. Now, yung ano naman, yung saglit na nakikigamit kasi ako sa
Cute.
So anyway, now another one is the script kiddie. So ito yung mga, alam niyo, nagsisimula pa lang sa hacking, nag-eksperimento pa lang, and they usually rely on hacking programs or codes that have been developed by experts. Meron namang tinatawag tayong hacktivists. Alam mo yung meron silang mga advocacies na gusto nilang i-promote. For example, ayaw nila sa animal testing. So i-hack nila ngayon yung mga companies that do animal testing for their product.
Oh.
Yun. And then the fourth one, ito yung mga plain and simple cybercriminals. So in terms of the level of capability and danger, syempre ang pinakamataas dito yung nation states, no? Yung mga countries that do cyber warfare. Pumapangalawa dyan siguro yung mga cybercriminals na binanggit ko kasi ang primary motive talaga nila is financial and economic. They want to make money out of it. And this is, mind you, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry.
Yes, I can imagine.
And I remember, I just had a recent conversation with Sir Angel. One cyber criminal, isang tao lang ito pinag-uusapan natin, recently announced his retirement. Hindi pa siya kilala ng buong mundo. He's been making money for more than a decade. Nag-announce na siya ng retirement niya. And you know how much he made?
Magkano, sir?
Anywhere from the area of 2 to 3 billion dollars. And that's just one person. Imagine what an entire criminal organization can do, no? So, going back to your question, bakit sila palaging nauuna? I think I would like to cite the quotation here, necessity is the mother of invention. So, sila, ang palagi nilang iniisip, paano ko ba mako-compromise yung isang system? Paano ko ba mahahack yung isang organization? And that question creates a lot of these ideas as to how that can be achieved. And between someone who is just staying in place, static defender, and a dynamic attacker, almost always the dynamic attacker is able to defeat the static defender. So yun.
Wow, grabe. Okay, Sir Angel.
Okay, well, nung nag-umpisa kami, ang sabi namin noon, the bad guys are one step ahead. Always one step ahead of us. Ngayon, the bad guys are 100 steps ahead of us.
Yikes.
Tama yung sabi mo, Adelle, no? Nag-umpisa din sila siguro sa mga hobby-hobby. And then nagkaroon na ng motivation. So yung apat na motivations that was mentioned by Ace earlier, that is very true until today. Now the defenders on our side, we are confined to the four walls, no, of our offices. 8 to 5 trabaho natin. 8 to 5. O sabihin man natin 24/7, pero 8 hours a day pa rin. And ang dami nating the defenders, madami tayong trabaho, no? Meron tayong family, meron tayong tinatawag na work-life balance, meron tayong tinatawag na vacation leave, kung ano-ano pang dahilan natin para mag-disconnect tayo sa trabaho natin sa mga defenders. That is one very big problem. Yung mga attackers, they are always on the offensive. But the defenders, we are worried about our work-life balance. We are worried about our stressed life, no? Dapat meron tayong ganito, dapat meron ganyan. And that's the reason why nagiging many steps ahead na yung mga attackers. And idagdag mo pa doon yung hindi naman tayo binibigyan ng tamang budget ng offices natin for us to continue, no, the improving our knowledge and skills. And most of the time, kung kukuha tayo ng training and certification, most of the time it's for promotion, not really for
Mm.
not really for skills upskilling, no, purposes. So, yan ang mga ngayon. And idagdag mo pa yung economic perspective na sinabi ni Ace. Hindi ka na nga pumapasok ng 8 to 5, hindi mo pa kailangan gumising ng maaga, nasa bahay ka lang or nasa coffee shop ka lang, you do your hacking, you create exploits, you sell it, or nasa beer house ka or pub, drinking your favorite alcohol, and you're earning billions of dollars. So that, I think that's more than enough motivation for people to really advance their skills. Samantalang tayo sa defender side, unang-una, marami din sa atin siguro na mababa ang ating quality of living dahil hindi naman tayo binibigyan ng halaga masyado sa ating mga opisina. And in our advocacy, that is one objective, to educate the community so that a proper compensation is given to dedicated professionals who are into cybersecurity.
Okay. Joyce?
Adele, yeah, I actually have a question for our two guests today. Kasi dalawang incidents come to mind immediately. Yung nangyari dun sa isang loan app. I'm not mentioning, I'm not going to mention the name of the application. Pero, ito parang almost 3 billion data yung galing online. Yung mga members na loan application na yun. Plus, because of the pandemic, there are reports that online child pornography is on the rise. So, paano po ba pwede ma-address yung mga ganung concerns?
Okay, Joyce and Adele, I'll address the child porn aspect of the question, and then I will turn naman to Angel pagdating dun sa address the child porn issue first. One of the saddest things I have found out in my job currently is the fact that the Philippines is, if not number one, we are one of the top sources throughout the world of child pornography. Alam mo, so disturbing, especially for a father like me who has a very young daughter, no? So, after knowing this, syempre, the first thing you ask is, well, while you are doing your job, how else can you do your job and then address this issue as well? Of course, we know naman that may kanya-kanya tayong role. May role ang regulators, may role ang Congress, may role ang law enforcement. Kami naman dito sa Smart and PLDT, what is our role? And kami sa cybersecurity group, we have taken it upon ourselves to be in a lead role in our company when it comes to combating child pornography. So how do we do this? First thing we do really is to own child pornography sites. So ang tanong dyan, is this legal? Yes, absolutely. This is legal because we have a law that mandates service providers to deny access to sites that carry child porn content. So, inilinawin natin ang inaalaw lang sa amin ng batas is to block child porn content, not pornography in general. Okay? That's another thing. Now, good if a website is already known, no? So, ang sources natin dyan, yung National Telecommunications Commission, yung law enforcement agencies. We also purchase intelligence online and from service providers who provide us with links to these websites. And lastly, yung pang-apat, we also do our own open source research. So, lahat itong natatanggap namin na information that lead us to these child porn sites, binablock na namin kaagad ito. Now, so far, we have blocked more than 3,000 child porn sites. Now, the question is this enough? And the plain and simple answer is no. So that's why recently we have we are in the final phases of our negotiations with the Internet Watch Foundation. So why is this partnership important for PLDT and SMART? Internet Watch Foundation is a nonprofit organization dedicated to seeking and identifying child porn sites, and they provide for a minimal fee. They provide to us this additional capability to identify these websites and these child porn sites, so that yung capability namin to block at the technology level is increased. No, now presumably these are all not enough. So we are taking it to the next level, and we are looking at a behavioral based approach to identifying these sources. And when we say sources, hindi lang website, no? Kasi if you look at the child porn problem, it has both a demand and a supply side. The demand side is usually coming from Western and more developed countries, no? North America, Europe, and Australia. Now, there's very little we can do about that other than blocking. Now, on the supply side, which is the domestic side of the problem, there has to be something to be done at the level of awareness and education, no, sa mga pamilya, and law enforcement. Now, pagdating sa law enforcement, this is where we can partner with our law enforcement agencies pagdating sa behavioral analysis. Paano? So, for example, alam naman natin that certain IP addresses in certain geographical locations have a average bandwidth usage. Pag biglang nag-shoot up yan, at sa mga this oras ng gabi, for example, it already raises the question of ano bang ginagawa ng mga tao dyan sa IP address na yan. So, unusual yan. And if it's over a sustained period na more than 8 hours, which is beyond the working hours of any regular person and beyond the school hours of anybody doing online school, now it raises the question already, oy, ano ba ginagawa nito? Now, what we do there is once we've identified these areas, we don't automatically assume na may illegal na ginagawa dyan. So what we do is binabato natin to sa mga law enforcement agencies natin for them to investigate. At malay mo, if the area is known nga, di ba, especially, and we don't want to sound ano naman dito, prejudice, no, but there are certain areas, especially depressed areas, na very prominent at very very notorious for being sources of child pornography. Yung mismong mga kamag-anak ang nagpe-peddle ng kanilang mga paslit para mag-engage dito sa child porn na ito. Sir Angel?
What was the question on the? What was the other question?
Yung the app that was recently compromised, releasing 3.3 million personal information, Sir Angel.
Yeah, what's the question about that?
Joyce?
Joyce?
Hi, sir. Yeah. No, so, there was this online loan application. Tapos yung data ko sa mga members niya, almost
Medyo hindi clear yata.
Sorry. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, that's better.
Oo. Yeah, so yung this loan application that's online, ano siya, sir, yung data ng mga members niya, they sold it online. Or it was sold online. Hindi nila clear kung sino kung saan nanggaling yung data breach. Kaya lang paano yung ganun, sir? Di ba parang ikaw nagbigay ka freely ng data mo, password mo, email addresses mo, other collaterals mo, tapos wala ka man lang habol, so paano mo po-protectionan yung sarili mo doon? They're claiming it's encrypted, so hindi rin mabubuksan kahit mabenta. Pero totoo ba yun? May ganun bang klaseng assurance na kahit na mabenta siya online, hindi magagamit yung data mo?
Unang-una, kung hindi magagamit yan, hindi yan ibibenta. Di ba?
Correct. Precisely.
Yung passwords, by default naman, kung saan nakastore yon, meron talagang masking na naka-implement doon by default. No? Merong tinatawag na encryption. But that encryption, depending on the technology or the application that you are using, doon makikita kung talagang hindi siya ma-decrypt. No? So for example, in a Microsoft application, for example, mataas yung kanilang encryption algorithm na ginagamit, very strong. No? And it would take years. If you can get hold of the encrypted password file, it would take you years to crack using a cracking tool and a powerful machine. No? But in this case, if I'm not mistaken, this is an application layer password. No? So application meaning the mobile application of the service provider in this case. No? So that mobile application, you you supply your username and then you supply your password, and the password gets masked also. Now, as they claim that it's encrypted, if true, then how come there was a possibility to view the password? And the password is not the only important aspect of this breach. No, there probably are more than one or more than two personal information that, when put together, can be used in any fraudulent transactions, and could be very beneficial to the attacker and to the one that he is selling to. No? So that is why if you are an organization storing, collecting, storing, processing, and transmitting personal information, you cannot ignore the importance of security. Now, if the encryption cannot be provided, you must have compensating controls that you need to implement to anticipate possible compromise on the different layers of your system before it gets to the part where information is extracted and decrypted and becomes a readable format. So it's also difficult for us on our part to try to guess, no, ano ba talaga ang meron sila. We are just basing our comment on the statement that was released, that there's an encryption. But encryption is just a very small part of the whole ecosystem of securing an information. An information, imagine an onion, yung sibuyas. Yung sibuyas may core sa loob. No? That could be your information, yung core na yon. Then there are different layers. The different layers would be your different security implementations. So the anticipation is before the attacker gets to the core of your business, which is your information, then you must fortify every layer. Otherwise, when we say it's hacking, then the perpetrator probably was able to execute an action that brought him or her directly to the core of your business, which is where your information is coming from. I think muted ka, Adelle.
Ayan, sorry. Sinasabi ko po, ang ganda ng analogy, yung isang simpleng onion, pero na-illustrate niya mabuti yung punto na nandun sa core yung information at iba-ibang layers yung nagpoprotekta dun sa core. Natuwa lang ako, sir, sa isang comment dito sa viewers natin. Kung meron daw Newsroom Titas, meron namang cybersecurity titos. Yan, kayo ba? Okay, gusto ko po bumalik dun sa phishing kasi parang ang insidious niya, parang mukha siyang harmless. Tapos parang nagpe-play siya dun sa ugali natin ng papagtiwala, parang hindi tayo nagko-question, ganyan. Meron po bang mga tao na easy targets o yung sinasabing low-hanging fruit para sa mga phishing attacks? Meron po bang profile yan? Or sino po ba yung dapat na mas mag-ingat?
Okay, ganda question yan, Adele, no? Siguro, Angel and I can contribute to answering that. So, my contribution to that question is ito. Again, i-relate ko yan sa organization. Merong mga low-hanging fruit yung sinasabi. Yung mga malalambot yung ilong. And we need to recognize that. As an organization, even kami, na we work in technology space, hindi namin pwede sabihin sa smart, PLDT. Ako namin, hindi madaling maloko sa mga phishing ano na yan. So we don't assume that. We always assume, we always assume the worst behavior that we need to address. Kasi kung hindi, yan, kayong unang-unang tamahan. So, yung anti-phishing awareness namin, PLDT and Smart, it's one of our pillar programs sa cybersecurity. It plays a very large part. The entire organization is actually subjected to a phishing simulation. We do it regularly, and when we started out, we had several cases, no? When we say simulation, parang ano lang to, kunwaring phishing simulation lang. At may nabingwit kami. We started with a very large number, no? And we're proud to say, when Sir Angel instituted this anti-phishing awareness campaign, shortly after he came on board sa PLDT Smart, we started with several cases of mga baited employees. By 2020, that's last year, we brought it down to 0. Okay? So it is possible to address that problem. Now, going back to your question, Adelle, if you want to address the phishing, the phishing phenomenon, you really have to understand human behavior online. That is the first step to understanding how to address this problem. And what is that aspect of human behavior? Anything that catches an individual's curiosity, interest, or anything that has a value or incentive tied to it, it almost always catches a person off guard. So once you understand that, that is the first step in addressing the phishing phenomenon, no? Which, like you said, and tama ka, it's a very, very simple tool, yet it's a very, very pernicious method still being used. It's low tech, no? But it's very, very effective. Sir Angel?
Para sa akin, in addition to what Ace was saying, ang laging biktima or ang low-hanging fruits dito sa attack na to ay yung mga nagsasabi na hindi ako naniniwala dyan. You know, when we started the data privacy implementation of the Data Privacy Act, no? So many of the data privacy practitioners started to do a campaign. You should not, even with the National Privacy Commissioner himself, you will always see him on cinemas, diba? Before a movie starts, you'll see this guy saying na don't give your personal information. Don't do this, don't do that. But then there are also many of our internet users or technology users who really not believing into all these things. And they will always say, wala namang mangyayari dyan, no? Okay lang yan. So, going back to this mobile app that was compromised, no? 3.3 million users. We should assess, or we should analyze the profiles of these users. the profiles of these 3.3 million. Dahil baka kailangan makita natin kung ito ba sila, yung mga nagsasabi na okay lang yan. No? I will give my information anytime. And if majority are this kind of profiles, this type of thinking, then maybe with the information that their information is actually being traded in the dark web for possible fraudulent transactions in the future, then maybe we can ask them, how are you feeling now? Do you still feel confident that you just give your information to anyone? You just download the application, supply the information. Do you still feel the same? We should have that survey, because the moment we change the mindset of this kind of people, then that is a start of an improved way of doing things in a secure manner and with a data privacy conscious transaction, right? Well, we will have to provide information, but do we need to provide all? Do we need to supply everything with a simple contact tracing? What you call this, in every malls that you go to, you are asked to supply your information. How many information do you need to put there? No, when it's called contact tracing, you need to be contacted. So all you need to supply there is your phone number so that you can be contacted, right? You don't have to put there your address. Physical addresses nowadays is no longer that relevant when you are talking about technology. Just put your number. That's it. No names, no nothing. Just numbers so that you can be contacted. That's supposedly how we should do things. We should be minimalist when it comes to our information, right? So going back to that, to the question, the probable victims are, number one, those who are unsuspecting. Number two, those who do not understand the importance of their personal information. They thought it's just something that they can give away. And number three, those who are not paranoid enough. No, you are paranoid when you receive email. You should be paranoid. When you receive text messages, you should be paranoid. When you receive chat messages, you should be paranoid. When you are asked to click a link, even by your whoever is a legitimate source, you should be always paranoid. No, paranoid. That's how you will survive. In our group in PLDT and Smart, we are the most paranoid group. No, and with our paranoia, you cannot be sleeping soundly at night, especially if you are part of the operations. Otherwise, if you can sleep soundly at night, and you're part of a 24/7 operation, then you're not paranoid enough. You are confident. And confidence is the weakness of any organization that is operating in cyberspace. Muted.
Dapat praning tayo palagi. Dapat tamang hinala pag may natanggap na email or text. Iisipin mo agad, baka hindi naman ito yung,
Yes.
they're not who they're pretending to be, no? So, ganyan tayo. Dapat mag-ingat. Natuwa lang ako, sir, kasi parang in all this na we're talking about technology and the internet and all that, babalik pa rin pala tayo sa human behavior, something as basic as that. Yun yung parang kailangan nating maintindihan at ma-appreciate para maprotektahan natin yung sarili natin.
Yes,
Sa
tama ka doon.
cyberspace.
Tama ka doon, Adele, no? The human behavior is a very important factor for us to be able to create a culture of cybersecurity and a culture of data privacy. Now, kasi kung isa sa atin will not adopt such mindset, then that person becomes our weakest link. Now, I'll give you an example, no? If you have a friend who is not paranoid about all these hacking and data privacy incidents, no, and that friend of yours happen to have your pictures, you know, your phone numbers with your name on it, with everything on his or her smartphone. And then his credentials were compromised, and then eventually led to a compromise of his laptop or smartphone, and extracted all the information that is in that device. You are part of that. Your personal information is part of that device, and supposedly, if you're going to base it in the data privacy law, whoever stores or process or transmits, no, personal information has a liability, no, and there's a penalty corresponding. But I'm not sure if the person is individual, right? So if we are able to create, no, everyone is cybersecurity culture minded and data privacy culture minded, no, then we can create a society wherein at least we elevate the level of security and we minimize the incidents on data privacy to the lowest level. The 3.3 million user extracted and being traded in the dark web is unacceptable. That is unacceptable.
Okay. Dito po sa ginagawa ninyong sa cybersecurity, meron din po kayong organization na binuo na nagpo-push para mas maraming Pilipino ang magkaroon ng mindset para sa cybersecurity. Pwede po bang magpakwento tayo tungkol dito?
Okay. Adele, you happen to be talking to both the chairman and the president of that organization. So what organization is this? Ito yung Philippine Institute of Cybersecurity Professionals. So far, it's the only organization in the Philippines that has embraced the cybersecurity professionals in the country. So we feel it as our mission to raise the awareness of our people. No? So when we say people, lahat ng sa Pilipinas. At the same time, we also plan to raise the capability, no? Yung our ability rather as a cybersecurity practitioner. So we're looking after our members, and eventually we plan to push this agenda to its appropriate place. And what is that? To Congress and to government. Right now, cybersecurity is one of the most in-demand professions, yet it is the most undersupplied. So this is an area where we feel the Philippines can move up the value chain. No? When the BPO craze came to our shores, we got to a point where we were able to overtake India in the number of call center places. No? But you have to ask ourselves, bakit natin na-overtake yung India? Bakit binitawan yung India yung pagiging call center capital of the world? So yun pala, nung tinignan natin yung trajectory nila, they were moving up the value chain. So from call center, they were now developing companies that were developing software. And then eventually, in our case, we should look at it from that trajectory, from call center to software developer, now to cybersecurity developer, not just cybersecurity customers. No? So yun ang gusto natin makita sa PixPro. That's why we are pushing this advocacy nationwide. We're already organized in NCR, in Luzon. We have a few chapters in the Visayas, and we plan to expand also to Mindanao.
Ano to? Yeah.
We'll ask Sir Angel to give you a extended background kasi he is the founding chairman actually of PixPro. Sir Angel?
My question kaya Miss Adelle?
Hindi sir, tinatanong ko lang po kung yung geographic reach ng PixPro so far. Pero sige, dagdagan niyo po muna yung background namin.
Yung PixPro ngayon is already the reactivated PixPro. No, we started in 2013 and until 2016 or 2017 we were able to create provincial chapters in the south of Luzon, north of Luzon, in Region 6 in Negros. No? We have a chapter in Capiz, in Iloilo province, and a chapter in what was the other, Katiklan, I believe, Antique and Katiklan, in that area. So the reason behind the creation of this organization, apart from the ones that were mentioned by Ace, is really the during that time in 2013 and before that, I was so frustrated with the way we educate, no, and provide skills to our cybersecurity professionals. Number one, it's very expensive. If you're going to if you're going to attend a 1 week training in any facets of cybersecurity, you're gonna be paying 80,000, 60,000, or even more than that,
So
100,000 plus.
prohibitive, ano? Oo.
Yes, exactly the reason why we created this organization, because there are so many that are interested to learn and understand, but then companies are also not sending them to these trainings. Very few companies can afford, no, or is willing to send their employees to this kind of trainings. And number two, these trainings are not even enough for you to upskill your skills, to upskill you or any professional. It's just a 1 week training. What can you get in a 1 week training when cybersecurity is very dynamic?
Hmm.
No, I believe before you finish the training in 1 week, there are already new things that are happening. No? Unlike in other areas where 1 week is really enough. Yeah, for example, in network, yeah. So you take a 1 week training on networks, how to set up routers, how to configure routing. There's a manual, and this manual will not change until today. It's still applicable. No, the
Applicable.
routing table creation before that I learned many years ago are still
Ganun pa rin.
applicable today, right? So that's okay. 1 week training for that aspect is okay, but in cybersecurity, you cannot afford not to read articles every day. You cannot afford not to do practice, no, not to practice new skills on a weekly basis or even on a monthly basis. You cannot afford that because the attacks and the attackers are getting more sophisticated on a daily basis. And I can assure you that if you take a 1 week training, I will tell you that's not enough, because the the module itself was created last year or 2 years ago, probably, and during that time it was applicable, but today it's no longer applicable. But that's what I said earlier. It's very frustrating because the threat during the time, imagine, Adele, 20 years ago, we already saw the threat growing. We already saw the sophistication growing, no? And yet the community is doing the same thing over and over again, no? Providing trainings and certifications over and over again. And we expect that we create a cyber secure environment. And to put emphasis on why we are lacking in this field is every year the financial losses due to cyber attacks are growing. The amount of data being stolen year on year is also growing. So you tell me, are we also improving in cybersecurity? Because if that's the
Parang,
basis, definitely we're not, right? And training, skills, and mindset is very important. So there is a
yes.
disconnect, no, with the problem at hand and the way we deal with the problem. And that's where PixPro came in. We provided a different mindset. We provided a different thinking, a very unorthodox thinking, a very unorthodox approach. No? Instead of instead of hiring professionals with 5 years, 6 years, or 10 years experience, in our organization, especially in ePLDT when I started, I hired newly graduates, because these interested people with high EQ, not IQ by the way, with high EQ, they're easy to train. They're easy to train, especially those who need a job. You know, if you need a job, if you badly need a job, you'll learn anything. You are willing to be coached. You are willing to be schooled. You are willing to do everything. That's the start of PixPro. Now PixPro is taking the fight to the next level. So we are now looking at influencing the national policy by hopefully sending a representative to Congress. So what we are saying is, instead of just providing expert advice to the lawmakers, why don't we send the expert himself to Congress?
Maging policy ng okay, you will provide the expertise through policy, ano. Sir, balikan po natin, may sinabi kayo kanina tungkol dun sa mga magiging professionals ng cyber security. Tapos sinabi nyo, hindi, para maging cyber security professional, hindi mo kailangan ng maraming years of experience. Kailangan mo lang matuto. Pwede pong i-elaborate to kasi baka may mga kabataan tayo na medyo interested sa field. Tapos na-appreciate nila yung importansya ng cybersecurity pero hindi nila alam kung paano at saan sila mag-uumpisa para sa career na to.
Ako ba yan, Ace?
Sir, kahit sino pa sa inyo ang pwede sumagot.
Okay, so wherever you are, no, kung if your area happens to have a PixPro chapter, kasi we also have a junior PixPro chapter. These are the students, no. One of the things that we do is we provide awareness to these students that there is another career we call cybersecurity profession, apart from becoming a programmer, becoming a network engineer, becoming a systems administrator, etc. So there is a cybersecurity perspective. Now, one of the very basic that we look at when we hire newly grads is the interest to learn. Ngayon kasi, Adelle, if you want to learn about something, about anything, you just go to Google and then search for that subject matter, no, or topic, or you go to YouTube. You watch videos. Now, if you apply, if you come to me and tell me, sir, every day I read at least 2 articles about cybersecurity, and I watch at least 5 videos in technical aspect of cybersecurity. That's interest, right? That's interest, and you should be. I would want you to be part of our team because this is the level of interest that we are looking for. No? And also, if emotionally, physically, and mentally you are strong, meaning if I ask you what's the hardest part of your life that you experienced, please don't tell me that the hardest part you experienced was when you did your thesis. No, medyo tell me something about your being strong, because that's what we need again. Also in cybersecurity, you need to be very strong.
Sabi nyo nga EQ, sir, no? EQ is very important.
Correct. So that's where you start. Don't start with certifications. Don't start with formal trainings where you have to pay expensive amount of money. Go to Google. Go to YouTube. Now, there are millions, if not tens of millions, of reading materials that will be available to you by our friend, no, Mr. Google. Ace, do you have anything to add?
Actually, Adelle, it might interest you to know. I was recruited to my position from a purely non-cybersecurity background. Okay, so that tells you something. More than more than the skills. Of course, skills are important, no? They're a good foundation. But more than skills, really, it's your aptitude. It's your security perspective. Paano ka ba mag-isip? Kung tulad nga na sabi ni Sir Angel, kung interesado ka to live, a happy-go-lucky life, wala kang kahit of paranoia at all, you are not suited for a difficult environment, then I think cybersecurity is not for you. So you have to remember that it's really not just skills. Maraming magagaling dyan, sabihin natin, no? Maalam sa computer, maalam sa internet, maalam sa mga configuration ng mga bagay-bagay na may kinalaman sa teknolohiya. Pero konting problema lang, bibitaw ka agad. That is not the attitude for cybersecurity. Okay. More than anything, again, like I said, don't get me wrong, skills are important, but what's more important really is the attitude.
Okay. Isang oras na pala yung lumipas, mga titos. Ang dami nating natutunan ngayong umagang to. Una, nagkaroon tayo ng insight sa pag-iisip ng mga hackers, yung mga mga those on the offensive, ano. Tapos, na pagtuunan din natin ng pansin na importante ang human behavior. Kahit na technology ang pinag-uusapan, dapat yung attitude or behavior ng users ang kailangan nating tutukan. Tapos, na imagine din natin yung future kung saan yung mga magiging cybersecurity professionals mayroong demand sa kanila at kung ano yung mga importante para maging effective ka sa iyong trabaho. So, I'm sure marami pang gusto kaming itanong at marami pang tanong yung viewers, pero this is all the time that we have. So, I'm really, really thankful, Sir Angel and Sir Ashley, for your time this morning and for your candidness sa pag-share ng mga bagay na to. So, yun. Maraming salamat po ulit at salamat sa mga nanood ng ating Newsroom Titas. So, antabayanan po ninyo ang susunod na episode mamayang gabi ulit. Pero, yun. I hope you had a productive morning. And marami sana kayong insights na natutunan. Tandaan po natin, dapat magiging praning tayo. Sige po, maraming salamat.
Thank you, Manila Standard.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.